Thanatos, gods that Kratos has killed in God of War, and who are they? This god of death is the father of Erinys and was featured heavily throughout the story as a background actor. He has been orchestrating many events in Kratos' life since the warrior was a child, including stealing away his brother, Deimos. After confronting the brothers, Thanatos kills the recently freed Deimos before quickly being dispatched by Kratos. In mythology, Thanatos is the Greek god of death, acting as a personification of the event. Like in the games, he's often mentioned in stories but rarely makes an appearance himself. In some stories, he's said to be merciless and indiscriminate, which fits the personification of death perfectly. Thanatos is the Greek primordial god of death, and the main antagonist in God of War, Ghost of Sparta. He is the ruler of the domain of death and the father of Erinys. Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Thanatos, in Greek, Theta Nu Alpha Tau Omicron, death, was the daemon personification of death. He was a minor figure in Greek mythology, often referred to but rarely appearing in person. His name is transliterated in Latin as Thanatos, but his equivalent in Roman mythology is Mors or Letus/Letum, and he is sometimes identified erroneously with Orcus. Orcus himself had a Greek equivalent in the form of Horkos, Rho Kappa Omicron Oath, god of the oath. In God of War series. God of War, Ascension. Thanatos isn't mentioned in the game itself, but it's curious to notice that, for being a primordial god, it is very likely that he participated in their war, which was mentioned at the intro of the game. The war was so vicious that almost all of the primordials died during it, and Thanatos was one of its few survivors, which is also a proof of the great strength and power he possesses, even against other gods. It is possible that, since many gods were dying in the war and he is the god of death, he was getting stronger at each time another god perished. In the multiplayer, when a warrior respawns after death, the announcer may sometimes say Thanatos will have to wait. God of War, Ghost of Sparta. Thanatos is described as an ancient and fearsome god, who predates the cycle of life and death, and is the reaper of all souls. He imprisoned Deimos, who is believed to be the marked warrior, by Zeus, Ares, and Athena. Zeus sent the siblings to capture him and hide the Spartan where he wouldn't be found. After Kratos, Deimos' brother and the real marked warrior, killed Ares and became the new god of war, he was summoned by his mother Callisto, who told him his brother was alive. This started Kratos' quest to find his brother. Kratos' search for his brother led him to realize where Deimos was imprisoned. At one point of the journey, Thanatos uses a corpse as a medium, warning Kratos to not pursue his path any further. The Spartan eventually confronts and kills Thanatos' daughter, Erinys. Finally, Kratos makes his way into the domain of death, where Deimos angrily attacks Kratos for failing to save him from Thanatos' torture all those years ago. In the final moment of the battle between Kratos and Deimos, Thanatos appears, snatching Deimos from behind, and angrily reminding Kratos that he had killed Erinys and that he would kill Deimos as retribution. Thanatos flies down with Deimos to Suicide Bluffs, the location of Kratos' attempted suicide. Kratos follows behind, determined not to lose Deimos again. As Kratos arrives, Deimos attempts to resist the god of death, but is ultimately overpowered by Thanatos and knocked over the edge. Thanatos flies away, remarking that the oracle lied about the marked warrior prophecy. Kratos rescues Deimos at the very last minute, finally making peace with his brother, and the two decide to jointly confront Thanatos. Thanatos, seeing the red tattoo and the ashes of his wife and daughter fastened to Kratos' skin, realized that the true marked warrior, the warrior prophesied to destroy Olympus, was not Deimos, but Kratos. He then remarks that Ares chose poorly for not taking Kratos as his victim. Thanatos then suggests to Kratos that he was nothing but a pawn in a game he doesn't know is being played. Both brothers ignore his mockeries and begin to fight the god of death. During the battle, Thanatos fights Kratos and Deimos using his blade, and takes the form of a gigantic winged black dragon-like monster, similar to Erinys. In the heat of the battle, Deimos saves Kratos from Thanatos' grip, only to be smashed into the rocks and killed. A furious Kratos attacks Thanatos, destroying his monstrous thick armor. Thanatos, mortally wounded, reverts to his humanoid form. With Thanatos weakened, Kratos beats him down without mercy, only to be met with taunts. Kratos then grabs Thanatos' cracked chest, opens it further, and impales him with his blades, ending his life. Before he perishes, Thanatos taunts Kratos one final time by giving him a devilish grin before exploding into dust and light. Later on, the mysterious gravedigger revealed to Kratos that due to his victory over Thanatos, he had become Death, the destroyer of worlds. Thanatos' death would be without consequences, however, as the gravedigger, who was in fact Zeus in the guise of a mortal, had overheard Thanatos proclaim Kratos as the true marked warrior. This, as well as Kratos' decree that the gods would pay for the suffering of both Deimos and Callisto, turned the tension between the ghost of Sparta and the Olympians into an all-out war which would see the destruction of Olympus overhaul. Trivia. At the end of the Rage of Sparta soundtrack, Thanatos' name, or death in the English translation, is chanted by the choir repeatedly, followed by Kratos, Deimos, and the Greek words for "the end has come." This was foreshadowing for Ghost of Sparta. Thanatos is the second son of Erebus and Nyx Kratos killed, the first being Charon. In Hesiod's Theogony, it is said that the Moirai, Fates, are the sisters of Thanatos, Charon, and Hypnos. Thanatos, along with his sisters Hemera, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, and brothers Hypnos, Charon, and Aether, are cousins of the Titans, Erinys, and Typhon, since Nyx and Gaia are sisters. When Thanatos turns into a giant monster, his head resembles the skull of Keres. He seems to have a sour disposition towards Ares, as he called him unwise, and even claimed that Ares chose poorly the day Deimos was taken. Despite this, Ares seems to have had the strongest relationship with Thanatos than any other god. Thanatos agrees to take Deimos from Ares, implying Ares is willing to enter the domain of death, and the skull of Keres is located in the temple of Ares. In the in-game cinematics, his eyes are pale, whereas during gameplay, they are not. There may have been a reference to Thanatos in God of War 3, when Kratos faces Zeus and tells him that the hands of death could not defeat me. Although, he also could be referring to the events in the second game, where he escapes being dragged into the underworld, or possibly both. In Greek mythology, Thanatos had no children. At the end of God of War 2, Kratos proclaims to Gaia that both Ares and Athena were dead. He never mentioned the death of Thanatos. This may imply that Thanatos didn't choose sides during the Great War, so his death shouldn't make a difference, or maybe because he is not an Olympian. Thanatos is the first one in the series who mentioned the Sisters of Fate, and also the first who planned to defy them, as he proclaims to Kratos that the Fates wouldn't hold him from killing him. Additionally, this foreshadows the end of the game.